the massive doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through them with measured steps, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Around her, the circular room stretched upward like the inside of a giant cylinder. Hundreds of seats lined the walls, each occupied by a representative from one of the galaxy's many species. Some had fur, some had scales, some were barely solid at all. But today, all of their eyes were on her. Elena had been called to this emergency session without much warning. The message had been brief and formal. The council required her presence immediately. No explanation given. She had a bad feeling about what was coming. 30 years of diplomatic experience had taught her to trust those feelings. Hi. Arbiter Krelix rose from his elevated seat at the chamber's center. He was a Vrin, tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His forearms moved in practiced gestures as he spoke. The translation device in Elena's ear converted his clicking speech into words she could understand. Ambassador Vasquez, we thank you for attending on such short notice. The Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's place in our alliance. We have concerns that must be addressed. Lena remained standing in the center of the floor. Protocol dictated she'll wait for permission to speak. Around her, she could see representatives from dozens of species watching intently. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked almost eager. That was never a good sign, Krelix continued. Humanity has been part of our council for 200 years. In that time, your species has expanded at a rate that troubles many of us. You now occupy 147 colony worlds. Your merchant fleet is the largest in council space. Your military has grown significantly. Lena kept her face neutral, but her mind was racing. This sounded like the beginning of something very bad. The Council has therefore decided that certain restrictions must be put in place. For the good of all species, for stability and peace, we require humanity to accept new terms of membership. A holographic display materialized in the air above Krelix. Elena read the terms as they appeared, and with each line her heart sank lower. Humans could keep only 50 colony worlds. The rest would be redistributed. The human military fleet would be reduced to a small defense force. All warships beyond that number must be decommissioned within 1 year. Human research facilities would be open to council inspection teams. Any technology developed by humans would become council property, available to all member species. Trade restrictions would limit human merchant vessels to approved routes only. The list went on and on. Each restriction was worse than the last. When the display finally faded, Elena took a slow breath. May I speak, High Arbiter? Krelix gestured his permission. These terms are extremely harsh. They would cripple human civilization. May I ask, what has prompted such drastic measures? Has humanity violated any council laws? Have we attacked anyone? Have we broken treaties? A Korthon representative stood up. The Korthon were a warrior species, proud and aggressive. This one was named Drachmer, and Elena had never liked him. You have not violated laws, human. But your rapid growth threatens the balance of power. Your military expansion suggests aggressive intentions. Elena turned to face him. Our military protects our citizens and assists council patrol duties. We have never used it offensively against any council member. Not yet, Drachmer said. But who knows what humans will do when they grow stronger? Better to prevent problems before they begin. A Selkari representative spoke next, its tentacles waving in agitation. Human behavior is unpredictable. You are too emotional, too quick to act. Other species cannot anticipate your decisions. This makes you dangerous. Elena realized what was really happening here. This wasn't about security or law. This was about fear. The older species in the council had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They had reached a comfortable equilibrium, a stable balance where everyone knew their place. Then humans had arrived, going from primitive wooden sailing ships to faster-than-light travel in just 500 years. They had expected humanity to remain minor players forever. Instead, humans had thrived, and that terrified them. How long do we have to consider these terms? Elena asked. Krelix's expression was unreadable. 24 hours. We require your government's answer by this time tomorrow. If you refuse, sanctions will be imposed immediately. Your ships will be barred from council space. Trade will cease. You will be isolated. Lena nodded slowly. And if we accept, then humanity will continue as a council member, subject to the new restrictions. It is for the best, Ambassador. For everyone. Alina looked around the chamber one more time. She saw calculation in many of the faces looking back at her. Some species were already thinking about which human colonies they would claim. Others were considering what human technology they would acquire. They thought they had humanity cornered. Accept humiliating terms or face isolation and possible war, they had no idea what was actually about to happen. I will take your terms to my government, Alina said. We will have an answer for you in 24 hours. See that you do, Krelix said. He sounded almost bored, as if this were already decided. Alina turned and walked back toward the doors. As she left the chamber, she heard conversation break out behind her. Many voices talking at once, excited and relieved. They thought this was over. They thought humans would either bend the knee or stumble into a fight they couldn't win. In the corridor outside, Elena's assistant was waiting. Marcus was young, but sharp, and he had been listening to the proceedings through a remote feed. His face was pale. It can't be serious, he said. Those terms are impossible. They're very serious, Alina said. She started walking toward the human embassy offices. Get me a secure line to Earth, priority 1. I need to speak with the Secretary General immediately. What are you going to tell her? Alina smiled, but there was no humor in it. I'm going to tell her that the Council just made the biggest mistake in their history. And then I'm going to tell her our response. Marcus hurried to keep up. What response? The one they won't see coming, Alina said. We're going to give them exactly what they asked for. We're going to leave them alone. Behind them, in the council chamber, the representatives continued their discussions. They talked about dividing human territory and acquiring human technology. They congratulated themselves on solving the human problem peacefully. Not one of them understood what was about to happen. Not one of them realized that in trying to cage humanity, they had just convinced humanity to walk away, and they were going to regret it very quickly. 20-3 hours later, Alina Vasquez stood before the council chamber doors once again. This time, she carried a single data tablet in her hands. The answer from Earth had come quickly, much faster than she had expected. Then again, the decision had been easier than anyone might have thought. The doors opened. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread about the ultimatum, and now representatives from every council species had arrived to witness humanity's response. Some expected capitulation. Others expected defiance and were prepared for conflict. None of them expected what Alina was actually about to say. She walked to the center of the chamber floor. High Arbiter Krelix looked down at her from his elevated position. He seemed almost sympathetic, as if he felt sorry for what he was about to force humanity to accept. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, have you brought humanity's answer to the Council's terms? I have, High Arbiter, Alina said. Her voice was calm and clear. She held up the data tablet. The United Nations of Earth has reviewed your proposed restrictions. After careful consideration, we have reached our decision. The chamber fell silent. Every being present leaned forward slightly. Humanity declines your terms, Alina said. A ripple of reaction moved through the chamber. Krelix raised one hand for silence. You understand what this means? Sanctions will be imposed. Humanity will be isolated. You understand perfectly, Alina said. However, we are not simply refusing your restrictions. We are doing something else entirely. Effective immediately, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. The silence that followed was absolute. For several seconds, no one moved or spoke. Then the chamber erupted into chaos. Dozens of species began talking at once. Some shouted questions. Others argued with each other. Krelix's hand slapped against his podium repeatedly, trying to restore order. When the noise finally died down, Krelix stared at Alina. You are withdrawing? You cannot be serious. Completely serious, Alina said. We are terminating our membership in the Council. All treaties, all agreements, all partnerships between humanity and Council species are hereby dissolved. We invoke Article 7 of the Council Charter, which permits any member to withdraw voluntarily. A Vryn diplomat stood up quickly. But withdrawal requires a transition period. Negotiations. There are procedures. We will follow all procedures, Elena said. Within 90 days, every human citizen will be recalled from Council space. Every human vessel will return to human territory. Every joint facility will be closed. Every shared project will be terminated. We will honor all existing contracts until their completion date, but no new agreements will be made. Drakmer, the Korthon warrior, stood up. He looked angry. You think you can simply leave? You think we will allow this? Elena met his gaze without flinching. You gave us two choices, Drakmer. Accept your terms or face isolation. We choose isolation, but on our own terms. We are closing our borders. No Council ships will be permitted in human space. All diplomatic relations are ended. Humanity is withdrawing from galactic affairs entirely. Krellick seemed to be struggling to understand. But why? You could have negotiated. Perhaps we could have reached a compromise. Could we? Elena asked. Your terms were not a negotiation. They were a demand. You wanted to break human civilization because you fear our success. We will not accept that. But we also will not fight you. We are simply leaving. Selkari representative spoke up, its voice carrying relief. Then this is good. Let the humans go. We do not need them. Several other species murmured agreement. Elena could see satisfaction on many faces. They thought they had one. They thought humanity was running away in defeat. There are practical matters to discuss, a Dralix administrator said. Many systems depend on human personnel. There are joint facilities throughout Council space. I have a complete list here, Elena said, holding up her tablet. Every human worker, scientist, engineer, and technician currently in Council space will be returning home. I am transmitting the withdrawal schedule now. You will have 90 days to make alternative arrangements. She pressed a command on her tablet. Information began flowing to every representative's personal display. As they read through the data, Elena saw expressions beginning to change. The satisfaction was fading. Uncertainty was replacing it. The list was very long. Humans had integrated themselves into Council society far more deeply than most species realized. Human engineers maintained power systems on 47 worlds. Human doctors staffed medical facilities on dozens more. Human merchants operated shipping routes that connected hundreds of colonies. Human scientists collaborated on thousands of research projects. Human programmers maintained computer systems for half the Council military. This will cause disruptions, the Dralix administrator said slowly. That is not our concern anymore, Elena said. You wanted us gone. We are leaving. Younger Vryn representative stood up. She looked worried. But what about the defense grid in Sector 9? Humans maintain the early warning satellites. Those satellites will be shut down and removed, Elena said. You will need to establish your own defense system. In the trade routes? Asked a merchant species representative. Human logistics software manages 70% of commercial shipping. You will need new software, Elena said. The medical technology began another voice. Will no longer be available. Elena finished. We are taking all our technology with us. Every patent, every design, every piece of software. Anything developed by human minds belongs to humanity. The chamber was no longer celebrating. Representatives were frantically scrolling through the withdrawal data, realizing the scope of what was happening. Humans were everywhere in Council society. They had volunteered for dangerous jobs. They had shared their innovations freely. They had maintained systems that no one else wanted to deal with. And now they were taking all of that away. This is revenge, Drakmer said. You are trying to hurt us. No, Elena said. Revenge would be sabotage. Revenge would be destroying things on our way out. We are simply leaving and taking what is ours. You wanted humanity restricted and controlled. Instead, you will have no humanity at all. That is what you asked for. High Arbiter Krelix was reading through the data with increasing concern. Ambassador, perhaps we were hasty. Perhaps we could discuss. There is nothing to discuss, Alina said. The decision is made. Humanity is withdrawing. We wish the Council well, but we are done here. She turned to leave. Called a voice. It was a small species representative, one Alina did not recognize. What will you do? Where will humanity go? Alina paused and looked back. We will take care of ourselves, as we always have. We will build our own future without interference. Perhaps we will find new friends out there in the galaxy. Perhaps we will remain alone. Either way, it will be our choice. She walked toward the doors. Behind her, the chamber dissolved into frantic discussions. Species were calculating losses. Administrators were panicking about failing systems. Military commanders were realizing their defenses had human-sized holes in them, but Alina did not look back. She had delivered humanity's message. Now the Council would learn what they had lost. It would take time, but eventually they would understand. You cannot treat your friends as enemies and expect them to stay. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. In 90 days, humanity would be gone from Council space entirely. And the Council was going to learn a very expensive lesson about taking people for granted. 6 days after the withdrawal announcement, the first disaster struck. It happened on Tessic IV, a Vryn colony world with a population of 12 million. The main power reactor that supplied energy to the capital city suddenly went into emergency shutdown. Warning lights flashed across the control room. Alarms screamed into the night. The Vryn chief engineer, Selkith, rushed to the main console. His 4 hands flew across the controls trying to diagnose the problem. The reactor was a hybrid design, combining Vryn technology with human engineering improvements. It had been built 30 years ago, and human consultants had helped design the safety systems. Those same safety systems were now preventing the reactor from restarting. Something was wrong with the cooling system, but Selkith could not figure out what. The diagnostic software kept showing errors he did not understand. He pulled up the technical manuals and found pages of dense notation written in human engineering shorthand. Without the human engineers who understood this hybrid system, he was helpless. Selkith tried to contact the human engineering team that usually consulted on reactor issues. The communication channel was closed. All human personnel had already left Vryn space, following the withdrawal order. He tried to access the human technical database. Access denied. The humans had taken their data with them. For 3 days, the capital city of Tessic IV operated on backup power. Then the backup systems began to fail. Power outages spread across the city. Hospitals lost electricity. Water treatment plants shut down. Climate control systems failed. 12 million Vryn suddenly found themselves in a crisis. There was no solution in sight. The Tessic, the 4th disaster, was just the beginning. Within 2 weeks, similar problems were appearing all across Council space. The cascade of failures was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. On the Selkari homeworld, a major medical center discovered it could not perform complex surgeries anymore. The diagnostic machines that identified diseases and guided surgical procedures were human-designed. Without software updates and maintenance, the machines were degrading. Error rates were increasing. The Selkari medical staff could not fix the problems because they did not understand the underlying code. Their own diagnostic equipment was generations behind human technology in the Dralix mining colonies. Extraction operations ground to a halt. 50 years ago, human mining engineers had introduced new techniques that increased mineral extraction by 60%. The Dralix had adopted these methods eagerly, but had never fully understood the science behind them. Now, as equipment broke down and processes failed, they could not maintain the systems. Production dropped. Critical materials became scarce. Prices began to rise. The Korthon military faced a different kind of crisis. Their vaunted warships, the pride of their species, were having computer problems. 20 years ago, they had allowed human programmers to upgrade their tactical systems. The humans had improved targeting accuracy, navigation, and threat assessment. The Korthon commanders had been happy to accept these improvements without learning how they worked. Now those same systems were developing glitches. Warning messages appeared in human technical language that no Korthon could read. System performance was degrading, and the Korthon programmers could not fix any of it. The code was too complex, too elegant, too different from their own programming methods. Trade routes throughout Council space were collapsing. Human merchant vessels had always been the most reliable, the most efficient. They had moved goods between worlds, maintaining supply chains that fed billions. Now those ships were gone, returned to human space. Other species tried to fill the gap, but they did not have enough vessels. They did not have the sophisticated logistics software that humans had developed. Shipping times doubled, then tripled. Costs soared. Food shortages began appearing on worlds that had always depended on imports. Medicine became scarce in distant colonies. Luxury goods vanished from markets. The galactic economy, which had hummed along smoothly for centuries, was beginning to shake itself apart. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions became a daily occurrence. Representatives brought reports of new disasters. Each species blamed others for not preparing adequately. Arguments broke out constantly. High Arbiter Krelix tried to maintain order. But even he was beginning to show signs of stress. The Vrin economy was suffering as their infrastructure failed. His own species was facing serious problems. "We must find solutions," he announced during one heated session. "Each species must take responsibility for maintaining their own systems." "How?" demanded a Selkari. "Representative, our people do not understand human technology. We adopted it because it was better, but we never learned how it worked. We depended on human experts to maintain it." "Then you must learn now," Krelix said. "That will take years. Decades, perhaps. In the meantime, our civilization is failing." A Dralix administrator stood up. "I propose we send delegations to human space. We can negotiate for their help. Surely they will not abandon us completely." Drakmer, the Korthan warrior, shook his head. "The humans have closed their borders. They are not responding to any communications. They have truly left us." "There must be something we can do," said a younger representative. "We cannot simply accept this disaster." An older Vrin diplomat, one who had served for many years, spoke quietly. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves how this happened. How did one species become so essential to our civilization without us noticing?" The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air, uncomfortable and accusing. "They volunteered for everything," the old Vrin continued. "When we needed engineers for dangerous reactor work, humans volunteered. When we needed doctors in remote colonies, humans went. When we needed programmers for complex systems, humans helped. They were always eager to contribute, always willing to share their knowledge. We accepted their help and never wondered what it meant." "They were infiltrating our society," Drakmer said. "Making us dependent, were they?" the old Vrin asked. "Or were they simply being helpful? Did they ever refuse to teach us their methods? Did they ever withhold information? No, we simply never bothered to learn. We took their gifts and never valued them." Krelix looked troubled. "Are you saying this is our fault?" "I am saying we did not appreciate what we had until it was gone. And now we are paying the price." The discussion went on for hours, but no solutions emerged. The reality was becoming clear. The Council had built their civilization on a foundation that included human contributions. Now that foundation had cracks in it, and everything was starting to crumble, and somewhere beyond the closed borders of human space, humanity was watching. They were not celebrating the Council's problems, but they were not helping either. They had tried to be friends and had been treated as threats. Now they were simply gone. The Council was learning what it meant to lose humanity. But the worst was yet to come. 3 months after humanity closed its borders, the Kresh attacked. They came from the Outer Rim, where the galaxy's civilized space met the wild darkness beyond. The Kresh were raiders and pirates, not a proper civilization. They had always been a nuisance, launching small attacks on frontier worlds. But they had never dared attempt anything major until now. The Kresh fleet numbered over 300 ships. They struck at the Torthan system, a wealthy trading hub near the border. The attack came without warning. Torthan's defense forces were overwhelmed within hours. The Kresh landed troops on 2 colony worlds and began looting everything of value. By the time the Korthon military responded, it was too late. The Kresh had already caused massive damage. The Korthon fleet arrived in force, determined to crush the raiders and restore order. They were confident. The Korthon had always been the Council's military strength. The battle was a disaster. The Korthon ships could not catch the Kresh vessels, which moved with surprising speed and coordination. The Korthon targeting systems, still suffering from software problems, could not track the enemy effectively. Long-range sensors failed to detect Kresh reinforcements until they were already in weapons range. When the battle ended, the Korthon had lost 47 warships. The Kresh had escaped with minimal losses and vast amounts of stolen goods. It was the worst military defeat the Korthon had suffered in 300 years. Commander Drakmer survived the battle, but his ship was heavily damaged. As he stood on the bridge, looking at the casualty reports, he finally understood what had been lost. Human strategists had helped develop the Korthon tactical doctrine. Human engineers had improved their sensors. Human programmers had made their computers faster and more accurate. Without those improvements, the Korthon were no longer the superior force they had believed themselves to be. The Kresh attack sent shockwaves through Council space. If the Korthon could not defend the borders, then nowhere was safe. Panic began to spread among the frontier colonies. Some worlds started organizing evacuation plans. Others were demanding protection that the Council could not provide. But the military crisis was only one part of a larger catastrophe. The economic collapse that had been building for months finally arrived with full force. The Vrin currency, which had been the standard for galactic trade, went into freefall. The Vrin economy had been built on trade guarantees and shipping networks that no longer existed. Without human logistics managing the supply chains, the guarantees meant nothing. 3 major Vrin banking institutions collapsed in a single week. Trillions of credits simply vanished. Species that had kept their reserves in Vrin currency suddenly found their wealth reduced to nothing. Stock markets throughout Council space crashed. Businesses failed. Unemployment skyrocketed. Food shortages became widespread. 73 Council worlds were facing famine conditions. Agricultural systems that had been upgraded with human farming technology were failing. Crop yields were dropping, and there was no way to transport enough food from worlds with surplus to worlds with shortages. The shipping capacity just did not exist anymore. Medical crises erupted on dozens of planets. Diseases that had been controlled with human-developed treatments were coming back. Manufacturing facilities could not synthesize the medications without human formulas and processes. Hospitals were running out of supplies. People were dying from illnesses that should have been easily preventable. The Dralix and Selkari, 2 species that had maintained cold but stable relations for centuries, nearly went to war over resource disputes. Both species were suffering from material shortages. Both blamed the other for not sharing fairly. Without human mediators to quietly resolve tensions, old hatreds began surfacing. Military forces mobilized on both sides. Only a last-minute intervention by the Council prevented actual fighting. Arbiter Krelix stood before the Council chamber, and for the first time in his long career, he looked defeated. His gray skin seemed paler than usual. His forearms hung limply at his sides. Around him, the chamber was filled with angry, frightened representatives demanding solutions he could not provide. "We must take action," declared a Vrin minister. "Our civilization is collapsing. We cannot simply wait for things to improve." "What action do you propose?" Krelix asked. "We've tried everything we can think of. We have reallocated resources. We have shared technology between species. We have attempted to recreate human systems. Nothing has worked. We must force the humans to help us," Drakmer said. His voice was harsh with anger and shame. "We can send fleets to their borders. We can make demands." "With what fleets?" asked another Korthon commander. "After the Kresh battle, we are weakened, and the humans were always strong. They never reduced their military despite our demands. Their borders are well defended. Any attack would be suicide. The Selkari representative spoke up, tentacles waving in agitation. Then we negotiate. We apologize. We ask them to return and abandon our pride? Drakmer demanded. Admit we were wrong? Yes, shouted several voices at once. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some species insisted they should apologize and beg for human help. Others refused to show such weakness. The debate raged for hours. Finally, a young Vryn diplomat named Salvera stood up. She was from the younger generation, one who had worked alongside humans before the withdrawal. Her voice cut through the noise. We need to face the truth. We were fools. The humans were never trying to dominate us. They were trying to help us. They shared their technology freely. They worked the difficult jobs we did not want. They maintained systems we could not be bothered to understand. And we repaid them by treating them as threats. Krelix looked at her. You believe we should apologize? I believe we should beg, Salvera said. Because without humanity, our civilization is dying. Every day, more systems fail. More people suffer. More wealth is lost. We can either swallow our pride, or we can watch everything collapse. There is no third option. The chamber fell silent. The representatives looked at each other, seeing the same fear reflected in alien faces. They were the leaders of species that had existed for thousands of years, that had built empires spanning hundreds of worlds, and they were being brought down by the absence of one relatively young species. Has anyone tried contacting the humans since the withdrawal? Asked an administrator. Many times, Krelix said, they do not respond to our messages. Their borders remain closed. We have no idea what they are doing behind those borders. For all we know, they are celebrating our downfall. But humans were not celebrating. They were building. They were trading with new species that the Council had ignored. They were advancing their technology without sharing it. They were thriving. And they were watching the Council space with a mixture of sadness and frustration. Because humans did not enjoy seeing others suffer, but they also would not forget how they had been treated. If the Council wanted humanity's help, they would have to do more than ask. They would have to change. The question was, would they realize that before it was too late? 6 months after humanity closed its borders, a ship appeared at Nexus Prime. It was a human vessel, sleek and powerful. Moving with the kind of grace that marked advanced technology, the Council defense systems detected it immediately. Alarms went silent when the ship transmitted proper identification codes. It was an official diplomatic vessel. It's the first human contact since the withdrawal. But the person who stepped off the ship was not Ambassador Elena Vasquez. It was Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of the Human Defense Fleet. She wore a crisp military uniform, and she walked with the confidence of someone who held all the cards in the negotiation. High Arbiter Krelix met her at the docking bay personally. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. The stress of the crisis had aged him. Around him, a dozen other Council representatives waited nervously. Admiral Chen Krelix said, attempting a welcoming gesture. We are pleased to see humanity reaching out. We have hoped for contact. I am not here to chat, High Arbiter, Sarah said. Her voice was polite but cold. I am here to deliver a message from Earth, and I have brought some things to show you. She walked past him toward a conference room. The Council representatives followed like students trailing a teacher. In the conference room, Sarah activated a holographic display. Images began appearing in the air. The first image showed a human colony world. It was beautiful, with gleaming cities and green farmland. The population counter showed steady growth. Economic indicators were all positive. This is Newterra, Sarah said. One of our largest colonies. As you can see, we are doing quite well. The next image showed a space station, massive and modern. Ships moved around it like insects around a hive. This is our new trading hub. We have established connections with the Zenther Collective, the Ralmoth Confederacy, the Trell Union, species you never bothered to contact because you considered them too primitive. They are now our partners. More images followed. New human technologies. Advanced FTL drives that made Council ships look slow. Weapon systems that made the Korthon military look outdated. Medical facilities that could have solved the Council's plague problems in weeks. Krelix felt something cold settling in his chest. You have been busy. We have been thriving, Sarah corrected. Turns out, we did not need the Council nearly as much as the Council needed us. Funny how that worked out. Yes, she showed them more. Surveillance footage from the edges of Council space, images of failing infrastructure, of riots on Vryn worlds, of Korthon ships limping home from battles. Sarah had been watching everything. Humanity knew exactly how bad things had gotten. You have been spying on us, Drachmer said. He sounded angry, but also ashamed. We have been observing, Sarah said. There is a difference. We wanted to know if you would realize your mistake. It took you long enough. Krelix straightened himself, trying to maintain some dignity. We understand that we made errors in judgment. We are hoping humanity might consider returning to the Council. We could negotiate new terms. No, Sarah said flatly. We could not. Silence fell over the room. Several representatives looked shocked. They had assumed humanity wanted to come back, that this was a negotiation about conditions. Then why are you here? Asked Selvara, the young Vryn diplomat. Because despite everything, humans are still humans, Sarah said. We cannot watch people suffer without offering help. It goes against our nature. We are willing to return to the Council and provide the assistance you desperately need. But it will be on our terms, and those terms are not negotiable. She pulled up a document. The terms appeared in the holographic display, written in clear language that required no interpretation. First, humanity will have a permanent seat on the Security Council with full veto power. No decisions affecting human interests will be made without our consent. Drachmer started to object, but Krelix held up a hand to silence him. Second, all restrictions on human territory. Military and technology development are permanently void. Humanity will control our own space without interference. Third, all previous demands for force technology sharing are cancelled. Humanity will trade technology and knowledge on our own terms, with partners we choose. Fourth, any future restrictions on Council member species require unanimous consent. No member will ever again be subjected to the kind of ultimatum you gave us. Fifth, the Council will formally acknowledge in the historical records that attempting to restrict humanity was an error. You will admit you were wrong. The terms appeared harsh, but everyone in the room knew they were fair. Humanity was not asking for dominance. They were asking for respect and equality. They were asking to never be threatened again. These terms are difficult, Krelix said slowly. Some species will resist giving humanity such influence. Then those species can continue suffering, Sarah said. I have intelligence reports showing 2 more Kresh fleets gathering at the rim. Your economy is weeks from complete collapse. 17 Council worlds have already sent secret delegations to Earth begging for help. You need us far more than we need you. You would let people die to make a point? Drachmer demanded. Sarah turned to face him directly. We are not the ones who let pride get in the way of helping people. You are. 6 months ago, you tried to break us because you were afraid. You wanted to keep us small and controlled. We refused and we left. Now you need us back, but you still want to maintain your superiority. That time is over. She let that sink in before continuing. Humanity believes in cooperation. We believe in helping others. We believe the galaxy is stronger when species work together. But we will not be junior partners in our own alliance. We will not be your servants. We will be your equals, or we will remain separate. Krelix looked around at the other representatives. He saw calculation in their faces, pride fighting with desperation. But he also saw acceptance. They all knew there was no real choice. Why would humanity even want to return? He asked. After how we treated you, why do you care what happens to us? Sarah's expression softened slightly. Because you asked the wrong question. Hi, Arbiter. The question is not why we would help you. The question is, how could we not? Humans do not abandon people who need them, even when those people do not deserve their help. Even when those people hurt them. It is not in our nature to turn away from suffering. But that does not mean we are weak. It does not mean we will accept being treated as inferior. We are generous, but we are not fools. We tried being friends and you tried to cage us. Now we return as equals, or we do not return at all." The room was silent. Everyone understood the choice. Accept humanity's terms and begin rebuilding, or refuse and watch everything continue to fall apart. Some species would be angry. Some would feel humiliated. But none of them could deny the truth. They needed humanity, and humanity knew it. "I will call for a vote," Krelix said finally, "though I suspect I know the outcome." 2 hours later, the council voted. The resolution to accept humanity's terms passed unanimously. Some representatives voted with relief. Others voted with resentment. But all of them voted yes. When the results were announced, Sarah nodded. "Very well. Humanity will begin reintegration protocols immediately. We will send aid to the worlds that need it most. We will help restore infrastructure and share medical supplies. We will even help defend against the Kresh. But remember this day, all of you." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. "Humanity did not walk away because we were weak. We walked away to teach you what strength really means. Strength is not forcing others to submit. Strength is knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. Strength is being willing to help even those who wronged you, but only on terms of mutual respect." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "The Council survives because humanity chooses to help it survive. Never forget that. And never make the mistake of taking us for granted again." As she left, Krelix sat down heavily. Around him, representatives began leaving the chamber, talking in quiet voices. The crisis was over. Humanity was returning. Things would improve, but they would never be quite the same. The Council had learned a lesson about the value of friendship, about the cost of fear, and about the danger of underestimating those who seem too kind to be dangerous. Humanity had shown them that the greatest strength sometimes comes not from domination, but from the ability to walk away and make others realize what they have lost. The galaxy would be stronger for this lesson. But it had been an expensive education, and it was one the Council would remember for a very, very long time.